things are impacted.
This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, okay. I'll start over. Hi, I'm Richard Crow. I've been a part of the Circle of the Dark Mother for about a year, almost 2 years now. So I've shared different topics. I've been part of this group, and it's been absolutely wonderful. So I come today to talk about symbolism. So I'm hoping that we can be kind of interactive, like, kind of talking back and forth and just kind of share some ideas, because symbolism is imprinted on every level, because we're using this and manipulating energy. We're seeking to impact influences, because to me, magic is about making things happen, making things work, changing the condition, making that person that's trying to seek outcomes, make that a reality. And still, instead of fantasizing or looking upon the stars, wishing and hoping, I want to see what's practical and put it to work and put it to the test. So I'm hopeful that maybe you yourself can take some things and use them for yourself. So a lot of the symbolism that I personally use, I come from a tradition of Palo Mayombe, Bejuka and Finda and Gondo Mayombe. I'm a Tata, which I'm a priest in the tradition. I'm also a Solomanic practitioner. Due to the secrecy of tradition, I'm very limited what I can share with you as a priest in regards to any secrets of Palo Mayombe. But I'd be glad to share some things about Solomonic magic. A lot of the context of what I'm going to be talking about is things that you can find on your own, things that you can research for yourself, things that you may apply that might be useful for you. And if not, then I'm just having good conversation. So a lot of what I utilize are grimoires. Some of the grimoires you'll find, like the Lesser Key of Solomon. It has a lot of symbolism embedded in this. A lot of workings and operations to developing the correct relationship. So you do and you utilize different spiritual operations to influence spirits and energies and vibrations. Also, another one that I like is the fourth book of occult philosophy. It has a lot of practical symbolism I like to use. I'll show you. So dealing with the planets. See if I can catch that in there. Working with different things that go inside of the seals. Kind of lean in here. There we go. So these things are imprinted from magicians before us. These are things that are utilized in different books. The book of Dr. Red, a lot of the Goetic work, and then also Mark. He has a program you can work from the 10 spheres. I have the whole printout for my years of work with him, as well as several other books. So these are books that are not just talking about magic, but they're practical applications of magic. So they're workbooks. These are things that are utilized to make cause and effect. So we build tools, we use herbs, we use songs, we use prayers, we prepare ourselves and we prepare space. So energy is manipulated through cause and effect with implements, with energies, with song, with vibrations to attune ourselves to these energies, these spirits, or this relationship that we build. Whether we believe this to be true or not, it's a makeup in our brain that makes this work. To me, this is more of a spiritual science, more so than trying to debate. It's more an interest of what can we utilize that is around us that's useful, whether it be picking an herb, or taking something from nature, or finding materialism that's connected to my actual desire of cause and effect. So this has been a big interest for myself, as well as me using it in my own practice, as well as being able to help other people find a way to use it for themselves. So this has been huge for me. Also the Kabbalah, that's something that I've explored, I would say very minutely, even though I've spent a lot of time looking into the subjoined magical orders that look at the symbolism of this. Also, celebration and honoring, celebratory days and seasonal change. Um, the third book of occult philosophy was probably one of the grimoires that we definitely see impact from the Kabbalah, when we start looking at like the four world spheres, as far as like Hey Vav Hey Yod, like Asiya, Yesera, Bria, Azaluth. So you have like Azaluth, which is like Earth, working with like pentacles, earthly material things of manifestation. Vav is like air. It's the movement and the action, the formations of things. Hay, which is like creativity, water, cups, chalices, these kinds of things. And Yod for Azaluth, which is fire, like using wands. So building that kind of materialism into that, but looking at it from that dynamic, it kind of stems into a lot of modern practices that you see. Not necessarily is that really a long-standing interest for myself, but we're all on different paths, and we all have different ways of applying this symbolism. So to me, it is psychological. It is spiritual. It's energetic. So there are many people that have stated that it's more of like a meta model. It is an encompassing component of all these things combined. So, looking at, again, going back to correspondence, the prayers that you're using, that you're utilizing, making that symbol come to life. You have to breathe life into it and share communion with the symbol that's connected either through a process of initiation, which inherently gives the person the ability or the authority or the position to have energetic influence over specific types of conditions that are built around certain types of spirits. So again, building proper tools that are connected to your tradition or your lineage. This is one mode of operation that you can tie to these symbols that are inherited to you. It could be, your book of shadows, or it could be, learning from a godparent, learning special symbols that are marked on the floor, to signify use, to make things move and make things happen. So that's kind of where I want to see symbolism go for each individual, that they can find what works for them and what works for their spiritual frame. So there might be symbolism that you might find favorable. There might be some that might not be useful at all. Or even using icons or deities, or using symbolism that you find you are connected to, that you might want to utilize. And so asking the appropriate questions, and developing the correct relationship. And how do I do that? I do that through the use of astrology. I use it by doing divination. I do this by learning from my elders and from my teachers, and making the proper steps in those lineages, as well as developing the relationship through learning, through experiential process. So developing that experience that becomes gnosis for me. experiencing the spiritual. So that has been a huge journey for me. And I would love to open up for questions to where we can be a little bit more interactive, to where I can take this a little bit deeper, because I actually have questions. I was hoping to kind of converse with Mark and a couple other people here, to where I'm not just rambling and making you just kind of yawn at me. I kind of want to see where you guys are at, or what you're thinking, or how you want to engage with symbolism, to where either I could be a helpful guide or point you in the right direction, or maybe you just want to hear other people talk to where you can get a better idea, or maybe you'll share yourself.
So we got a
So I
couple
leave it
questions.
open.
Yeah, Richard, we have a couple questions in chat. One
Sure.
is, both of them are from D. One is, can you talk about how the spirits of Palo communicate via symbolism when you get the chance? And if you can't talk about that, maybe just spirits in general.
I have a way to explain that, that is not secret. So in the Palo Mayombe tradition, we are priests that are manipulating the raw forces of nature and influencing spiritual forces of the dead. So to understand this relationship, we use this through marking symbols. So the markings of symbols are shared privately in your house, by your teacher, by your mentor. There should be some fundamental symbolism that is represented by the Mbongo, which are raw forces of nature, or the spirits of the dead will give you an insignia, or a spiritual marking to utilize in your ritual. And that's privately shared in your house. But it consists of songs, ceremonies, learning how to work plants, learning how to carry the ceremony appropriately, to achieve those goal sets. And so those things are achieved with, best way I can say this, you bring life through these ceremonies into position to where it can help those individuals. Does that answer your question, or you wanted me to go a little bit deeper, or what are you thinking?
She has a couple other questions. So D, you can go on if you want. You can go on off mute and ask. But she then says, when working with symbols, do you feel palpable energy emanating from them sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, you should be marking symbolism. Depending on what kind of spirits you're working with would determine what you're actually using, if we're talking in a spirit model. So I'll start there. I need to backtrack for a second. So for me, this is a multi-layer development process. So these are things that you're establishing, you're conjuring, you're making spiritual agreements. So you're meeting them in the place of where they come from, influencing, for example, like the genius loci, right? These are everything that's affecting you, from your front door to your bank to, going to your local hospital, to, affecting the neighbor next door, right? So these symbols are marked to imprint upon a condition, right? So you give enough force of energy, enough consideration upon where the positions of the stars are, or the correct relationship in which you were initiated, and given proper steps to carry out, to make these results effective. So I'll talk from a Western perspective, waiting until you are in proper alignment or using proper verbiage that's well established. So for an example, if I was working with I'll say I'll work from the Pleiadian order. Okay, we're going to talk primarily about like the 7 planets. Okay. So there are direct correspondences that I can nourish these conditions. Like there's gematria, there's learning about the relationship of that spirit. So understanding mythology, understanding the stories that are told to you, the things that you read about, the things that people believe. Some of it may be garbage, but could be used as an opportunity for you to use that as a gateway with that understanding. If enough people believe it, I think that it manifests itself in that way to some degree. Would I say that it's absolute? I would say no. I'd say it's one of many shadows that are cast from a candle flame, or it's something that manifests in your street or your back alleys or your church steeple or, your local prison. The similarities and corresponding elements that are truly effective, that symbol should reflect that behavior when you're asking that spirit to, or that energy, or what you're wishing or casting your effect in your ritual space to represent that condition, should be able to imprint enough power to be able to be moved through proper steps. So learning the proper steps of ritual operation, then knowing where to guide that symbol, and then taking that symbol and putting it to work to where it's replicating those conditions, whether it be under the waxing of a moon on a certain day, or the lighting of 5 candles that have a certain color correspondence, that have, specific types of fragrance that are left, to those spirits, or, these things that we make up in our mind, building your own ethnogore, developing an ethnology or a spirit that is part of a group set. Or maybe it might be a manifestation of your own creation that then is the manifestation that comes from you, because you are a spirit, that you can manipulate that condition to make it truly effective. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Yes, she says it does. So we got a couple more questions, 2 from D and 1 from Casey. I'll do the one that came first from D. That's so cool that the spirits give you a symbol. Do the spirits give you this via dreams? I don't mean to pry if you can't speak of it. And again, I think you can either Palo or not Palo, depending on what you can see.
Sure. Yeah, I can keep this all Western based and answer all these questions too.
Yep.
So actually, yes, dreams are a very powerful place. The realms of the spirits, the realms of the physical, the spiritual, to me, they're interwoven. There's not necessarily a special place that it only happens in those places. I think that we condition ourselves to have a wall and a parameter which we create the invitation. So we create the circle in which we work to replicate that condition. But yes, the best way I can say this. Yeah. Symbolism, working with spiritual energy. I just lost that. Hang on one second. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, ask me the question one more time.
Do the spirits give this to you via dreams?
Okay, sorry. I lost myself there for a second.
No problem.
So yes. So they will manifest themselves in a lot of different forms, in a lot of different ways. Something will manifest in the physical world, or I will be shown a sign through a dream. Number correspondences, I'll see a specific type of person. I will, there will be a certain sign or token of word that I'm looking for the spirit to give me a response. I will put it to you this way: with working with spirits, it should work quickly. And what I mean by quickly, I'm not going to wait 6 months for a spirit to respond to me about getting a job. I'm not going to wait about working with a client that wants their girlfriend back. I'm not going to wait for somebody figuring out whether or not they're going to be successful in their court case. I'm giving a maximum of like 10 to 14 days maximum. If I'm not seeing a result, my operation has failed, or I have not developed the correct relationship with the spirit. So if we're talking about like practical magic, where we're working with spirits on tangible physicality, it should work very fast. If you're working with gods or deities or ancestors or what have you, there'll still be some kind of indication that, you know, maybe this is not good for you and here's why. But when you're working with more raw or hot elements, they don't care what the conditions are if you're giving them what they want. But on the flip side, the spirits actually care about you personally. They very well may be cautious or may slow you down in your role, to say, hey, maybe take a moment to reflect or look back at this, or this is what I'm giving you because this might be more helpful. So that should be a process that you should work out through your spiritual agreements. So that's something that I would consider as far as the result. But yeah, dreams are huge for receiving information because it's multi-layered to me.
Excellent. So Casey asks, I'm curious, while we're discussing symbolism and the energy and beliefs that resonate with them, what your thoughts are on the tulpa concept.
On the tulpa?
Tulpa, T-U-L-P-A. The idea that that basically symbols or spirits can gain, I guess it's sentience or be created based on consciousness, either an individual's will or a group over time.
I think that is a very real thing. I think that it happens all the time when you're developing group sets, when you gather more than two people. In some traditions, they teach that. That you develop a coven. You're going to develop its own life, its own energy, its own power, that's going to manifesto. You start working in spiritual space. You build an altar in a room, and over a period of time, you're going to start developing phenomena. Perfect example, you consecrate your tools, and then you have a symbol or an icon that has the correct relationship from the heavens and the earth, right? Or whether it be a god or a goddess. Eventually, you're going to see that start to move. You're going to start hearing sound. You're going to start developing deeper insight. You're going to have some experiential process that is phenomenal. I think that is the consciousness that's developed because you've built a relationship with the space, and you've created a door of opportunity that you've created for these things to occur, and they're simulated and destroyed and rebuilt over and over and over again, depending on how much time, devotion, and energy we put to anything. You could take a toy and put enough energy into it and then make it work. If you have the right knowledge, the right insight, you can make a lot of wonderful things occur. Would I consider it something to think about, how you're conditioning those things? I would say, yeah, I would really think about what you're doing, to exercise caution and good common sense, because things can run wild really quick depending on what you have hanging around you. Whether it be hot or cool, if it develops its own consciousness, it becomes free thinking and independent. It's not just a machine of operation. It's now has the ability to gain deeper ability to have impact in your life. And so you choose how that impact controls you.
Excellent. Dee has a few more questions, but I'm going to jump to her most recent because it's directly related to what you're just talking about. So I'll then go back. She has a comment too that, oh man, yes, the phenomena. When I first built my Lilith altar, the energy was so intense I had to sleep on the other side of my bed. I also thought I was crazy. And she goes on, nice to know I'm not crazy. And Dee, if you're crazy, so are the rest of us. And then she says, so essentially, it's like a portal that invites the consciousness into our space.
Yes. So that's one thing I had to learn for myself. I know different people have different ability to utilize space. I don't put any altar in my bedroom. And the reason why is because I like to sleep. Um, and that becomes a thing. Now there are times, I may spend a night hanging out in my ritual room or look for specific types of insight. And these are times that I would utilize the ritual space for dreaming. So I'm creating specific types of conditions that, hey, I'm doing this ritual or I'm making this offering. I want this to occur on these, conditions. That we understand that we're trying to accomplish this task set. Then, going into that space, I'm kind of predestined. I'm on a journey, to have something occur. And if I don't have very immediate response of a go ahead, I need a yes in order for me to waste my time, because otherwise I can sit on the couch and drink beer and watch television, or I could go spend time with my family. I would rather the spirits do something for me or someone else that's actually going to be tangible, and not 6 years from now and wishing upon a star. I want it to really truly be effect. So when I go into that ritual space, I'm looking for those opportunities. I'm kind of going into space that I am cutting off the rest of the world and all the distractions, and I'm setting myself apart. I'm purifying myself. I'm establishing the correct relationship to get those responses.
Awesome. So another one that's sort of related to this is when you don't receive a symbol of yes, meaning what you're doing is not seem to be working, do you redo it, or do you just say, oh, not doing it anymore, or is it a mix of the two?
They have to tell me why. If they can't tell me why, then they're no use to me. If I don't have communication between me and the spiritual energy that I'm impacting, it needs to be shown through divination. It needs to be shown through a sign during my ritual, which the European context that I understand is that the airs shift, the vibration in the space is altered. I might have a sign from nature that might impact me in a very short time period. But what I'm doing is I'm sharing my space, and I'm sharing my breath, my life, my energy, my physical force, my ability to make tools that work. So they have to show result. If they tell me no, I want to understand why that this is not a good decision. So my question then would turn to what am I dealing with in this situation or circumstances that are not favorable? Please show me, help me understand what I need to see, feel, and do to change the situation that would become favorable. It's not all forceful. These relationships, they are. I'm not saying they are your best friend. They are a channel to create the relationship that is needed in order to achieve the task. Sometimes spirits just lie to you. It doesn't mean that they're all right. That's like opening your front door and welcoming somebody in. Unless you do proper procedure, you could be inviting anything. So when I'm doing these things, I'm asking very specific spirits, and I've never really had a problem when I followed correct procedure. So if it tells me no, for an example, like if I were to have a client that would come to me and ask me, should I do this? I have this situation, I'm trying to get through this problem, blah, 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 blah. When they come to me and the answer is no, I have to look at why, to where they understand the condition, that they might be dealing with more than what they think, or it just might not make any sense to do it in the first place. They might already have what they need sitting right in front of them.
Excellent points. I've had some pretty obvious no's, like the candle will not stay lit. The candle glass shatters. Some of these things are pretty much like, oh, yeah, not going to happen. And other times where it's questionable, but I think that's sometimes where it's up to people how it's going to play out. So you got to wait and see what the people do, kind of thing.
Right. And it very well affect you in a way that you never see it all. Right. I don't care how good of a magician or how good of a sorcerer or priest or whoever you are, you never see it all. You can have insight, you can have experience that you know what you're looking for when it happens. But something along the way, there's a thread that occurs that is impacting us. So when we really look at this, is that nothing about magic is truly safe. And if they tell you that it's safe, they're probably lying to you or are not really doing magic. They're doing psychological manipulation of themselves, which then it's all just what you create for yourself.
There was a previous question about, have you ever used a symbol incorrectly? Like you used the wrong symbol for what you were trying to do, or used one that maybe had a bad effect because it wasn't the right symbol for the situation?
I always try to make sure that what I am doing is the correct way to do it. I've had some excellent mentors. I've had a lot of really great guides in doing things. Have I been burned through doing ritual in my early youth of experimentation before finding good mentors? Yep, I sure have. I have been bitten several times. I have burned my fingers. I've made decisions that I would not repeat again, and it was a wonderful learning lesson. So those things do absolutely occur, and I've had them happen to me, and I make sure that I know who and what I'm dealing with when I do any kind of suggested desired result. So I try to look at it from a multi-layer perspective, from what could happen to me, what's going on. There's a lot of preparational conditioning that has to happen. And don't hurt my family, don't hurt my pets. Don't put me in a position that I'm going to be in prison. That kind of stuff. That just good common sense things that we figure out that maybe doing certain things is not a wise decision. Other times it's just, there's a little bit of, I always say that common sense is not commonly applied because we do things because we have power, right? We are invested with personal power. Our egos become inflated. We're human. We do these things because we make decisions and we learn from them. But yeah, I've definitely had that. To answer your question, absolutely, I have made very wrong decisions and learned very harshly, very quickly.
And we have two questions, one from Dee, one from Casey, that I think are pretty related. First, how do you tell when something is a sign or a symbol from spirit and not just in your head? And the second one, is there any methodology you use to clarify messages when you receive them?
Okay. So for clarification, with clarity that yes, I am receiving something that's outside of me. When second and third persons are receiving impact around me, that have no religious belief. Outside of my head, I would question that for every person in reality. Juan Milo Duquette made a good statement that, we're all inside of our own heads, right? That we just don't realize how big our head is. So yes, I think consciously we are experiencing this for ourselves, but as well as seeing that the result is carried out with the agreements through divination or ritual operation, that the spirit confirms yes through divination or through the result of action. Sometimes you might not see a huge effect when you're doing your ritual, but then 2 days later you get the call that, hey, this worked out for me. I got the contract, or I'm in the position that I need to be in, or hey, I learned a really bad lesson. Can you help me out? Because not all things are good and not all things are bad, but I guess that's a perception of each individual to decide for themselves. So I look for signs such as certain types of animals to appear, the heat or the coolness of the space around me. I look through my divination tools, and I also look at what results have happened to have the correct reputation, because I'm not going to confirm a yes to you if I'm not sure. I would use good common sense and say, you know what, I don't know. I'm getting not a clear sign. I need to reevaluate this, or I need to look at this maybe from a different perspective, or I am asking incorrectly, because the type of spirit that I'm communicating with, and developing the correct vocabulary for the correct type of response. So you know what you're actually looking for, and that just comes with experience of learning in your traditions or your personal practice, to see those things carried out. Does it work 100% of the time? I would say that's very questionable. If somebody tells you that the ritual operation works 100% of the time without failure, I would say that they're either extremely experienced in their spiritual practices, or they're lying to you.
Awesome. So, Richard, you're frozen. Can you hear? You may have just lost Richard. Okay, so it seems like Richard has frozen. So let me continue with a couple of comments here. First of all, great stuff from Richard. Great questions. We still have one that Dee's asked that we haven't answered, and I'll wait for Richard to either rejoin or reconnect. One thing I wanted to talk about is in Kabbalah, the Zohar talks about the idea that the letters, the Hebrew letters specifically, because that's what they deal with, but really any of the three-dimensional languages like Greek, Sanskrit, any of these, it says that they are energy intelligences. And what this means is the letter is actually, letters in Hebrew have a meaning and a numerical value. And then they make sounds, they represent a sound just like letters in English. But they are considered these energy intelligences that are almost like a spirit of their own. And when you combine them, they become a particularly directed spirit. And you see a very similar idea in the Sumerian practices, where they string together cuneiform writing, and it becomes, it becomes this very drawn out, like syllables put together, but it's also a magical symbol. It's not just a word, it's a magical symbol. And I really believe if you look at a lot of the pontos, which are used in Kabanda, I'm not sure what they call them in Palo. You might call them sigils. Whether you've created these or whether these are ones that have been passed down, there is an energy to them. and there's a consciousness to them, either because you've given it consciousness by putting your energy into it, or because it's been instilled over time. And the same thing with these letters and these symbols. So I think they become spiritual forces that link to what you're trying to do. Either a link to an entity, a link to a particular energy you're trying to move, a link to a state of consciousness. And so it's powerful. So that's something I think that also points to how symbolism works. Dee asks if I have any texts that talk about the spiritual and energetic nature of these languages. I believe so. I did this, I studied this a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure I have the books on it. One I know is the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph being the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet and Bet being the second. That's one that talks specifically about Hebrew and Kabbalah. I will look and see if I have any to talk about more, more of these other languages. I'm sort of reading into it based on my studies of these languages and their spiritual traditions. It's one of the reasons, and I know, do you know about this very well, mantras or like the use of the voice is tied to energy, it's tied to consciousness, it's tied to different spiritual movements. So really that's how it works. Richard, you're on, but you're mute.
Okay, I am back. Sorry, sometimes your internet gets kicked out.
Yeah, exactly. I just talked a little bit about how in Hebrew, the Hebrew letters, and I believe it's the same for Sanskrit and the other three-dimensional languages, that those are actually considered energy intelligences. So it is an energy, a consciousness, a spirit of its own. And when you string it together, you end up with something spiritual. You end up with one of these symbols that has energy. So I was just throwing that in while you were frozen. So
yeah, it feeds life. I mean, that's exactly what you're saying. I mean, what you're doing is you're feeding from a life of practitioners. There could be hundreds and thousands of people over thousands of years of practices that have utilized it for the very same purpose. Now you have attendance, now you have the opportunity to stretch into that space, because now you're part of that circle, part of that energy, part of that time and essence that is now attached to you, because you willingly put yourself in that position to get the result. So that's what I'm talking about. The as you said, that symbol, that energy, that space that you give life, that is now your opportunity.
exactly. Dee, just as a comment, says, yes, there's a practice of mantra resuscitation in Islam. And I don't know that I can pronounce this well because it's Dhkir, Dhikr, that there's scientific studies that suggest that this mantras induce different states of brain consciousness in people on prolonged resuscitation. And so science backs us up. And absolutely, I mean, we know that a lot of these words are designed to resonate with a certain frequency, and that changes consciousness, it changes energy, so it changes us. Kabbalah talks about in Kabbalah it talks about the idea that your brain is literally rewired by studying Kabbalah, and I don't believe it's just Kabbalah, it's any of this, because it makes you think in a different way.
I would agree. I see every religious practice, every spiritual system, it is a restructure. That's why you become the neophyte. That's why you become the godchild. That's why you join the order and come knocking on the door to seek its inner mysteries. If we talk about lodge-based philosophy or our modern practices, where we have to have the initiatory experience, and even older practices that are very traditional, that require the initiation. That's why you receive this, is to alter the current. You're changing the aura, you're changing the vibration, you're being resurrected and reborn once again. So we see this in pretty much every system that has a tangible result. I think that's part of it. Like it's part of your science of procedure, is that we engage, we immerse ourselves, and then we too become those ancestors or those forebearers of knowledge that, we're a child and we become adults, and, then we grow to old age and life, death, and rebirth. So that's a natural cycle of things that happens with every creature on the face of the planet. And we join I consider it the morphic resonance of the spiritual realm. We manifest this like Plato, because we are manipulating and shaping these conditions on our structure of understanding, because we get a fragmentation of true understanding. We get a glimpse in the mirror that reflects back to us, that we able to grasp that divine ability, and then we're capable to manipulate those conditions because of that.
When I think you're talking about how ancient, some of this stuff is ancient, some of these symbols are ancient. I think it's really fascinating. I've been doing a lot of study into ancient Sumerian belief. And Sumerian culture dates back to 4500 BC.
Right.
Language, of course, written around 2800 BC was the first cuneiform tablets. So we don't know exactly what was done before the cuneiform, because, there was no way to see it. But, we know from other cultures that really things start out similarly, they just evolve. And once writing occurs, it gets written down. What's really fascinating to me is when you look at what the Sumerians were doing, probably all the way back to 4500 BCE, they were using what they called what is translated to incantations. They used mantras, they used symbols, they used herbs, they used astrology, and they used stones, different stones and crystals with different properties, and spirits. Right. Nothing has changed. I mean, yes, we've refined, we've changed languages, we've learned things. We now understand science of energy and such. But I just think it's amazing that this is so old and still gets results, even though we're living in this age.
Yeah. I mean, if we look at it from, I'll even throw this in the mix. If we look at it from a Platonic perspective, where we learn to remember, we learn the stories sitting around a campfire, very tribal conditioning. We learn from grandpa and grandma. We learn the ways through the acts of confirmation or joining the coven and gaining a new name, taking on the character or assuming the character of our ancient operatives, right? When we consider this, we are assuming the role of our humanity that connects to spiritual forces and nature. So we're reconditioning the brain to be responsive because we've conditioned it that way. And we're thousands of years of re-replicating through our mythos, through our stories. We become storytellers, and then we live our stories. So we wake up consciously, and then we utilize these role plays, these conditions that we get a response because we have built our brains for thousands of years to be responsive because of this, because it has worked before, and that's why we do it. Otherwise, we wouldn't waste our time of even being here in the first place, because we're looking for a result, we're looking for an answer, and we're looking for a response.
Absolutely. Dee has a couple of realizations or comments here, but I'm going to jump to this because it's directly with what you just said. It's almost like this brings us back to our spiritual origins as people, maybe before people. Dee had one other question too, which is, she did ask it about Palo, but I think it can be, doesn't have to be. It was whether you create your own symbols or whether you use ones that have already been created, or both.
I would say that they are usually, if you are, I can only speak for myself. I can't tell anybody what else they do in their house and their tradition or their lineage. I I learn all my stuff from my godparents, and I pretty much leave it there. What I learned there, I utilize in my own personal practice based on what they give me permission to teach and share and learn and do. And until I'm a godparent, there's a lot I can't really share.
Mhm.
And those that are found worthy to have the knowledge, that are able to show that they'll be responsible. These things are taught from generation to generation. These things in this tradition are very secretive. So all of what's shared in Palo Mayombe, I would say the best result of finding out information about Palo is go join a house. That's the way you're going to find out. And so that has to be done through divination and proper communication with spirits and using the correct steps of procedure. And the only way that's done is to go to a proper palero, go to a yaya, go to somebody that's reputable, that's acknowledged in the community, that has proper initiation, that can give you proper initiation, can give you proper information, can guide you and to give you proper insight. Um, I will tell you that it's not for everyone. The spiritual frame of each individual is all different and unique. So until everything is laid out before you, it's a good question. To respond to your question, yes, these things are taught, learned, and experienced with an elder, and that's how you receive this information. Nothing's fabricated. In true tradition, in Palo lineage, you should be learning correct symbolism through the godparent, giving you instructions of how to do it, how it's worked, why it works. They should be able to tell you the ins and outs and the whys and because. If they can't give that to you, they're probably not the right person for you. And that I would investigate thoroughly before joining any house, how they treat themselves, how they treat you, how they treat the other god kids. That would be my insight to you about exploring Palo Mayombe. It has brought me many blessings. It has given me more than I could ever dreamed upon. And I'm blessed that I'm in the house that I'm in because my godparents are extremely knowledgeable. And I say that because they're the ones that I put my trust in. Otherwise, I would have never joined their house and I would just be minding my own business. But in regards to learning tradition, there's a lot of knowledge and you never can grasp it all. There's so much to do in that tradition. And there's so many layers to it going from A to Z. I would say it's a lifetime.
And I think really well said that you mentioned, Richard, before you join, and you're talking specifically about Palo, but I think this is true of any spiritual tradition. See
Correct.
how they're treating people around them and how they treat themselves, as you said, and how they handle the spirits as well. And there's different traditions in different ways, but you can get a feel for the energy of what people are doing and make sure it's right for you.
Yeah, and see how they're really living their lives and what kind of results are they getting.
Right.
How reputable, when they do a ritual, how quickly are they getting results, and what kind of results are they getting. How well are the people in the tradition doing? How are their lives going for them? I'm not saying things don't happen, because they most certainly do. To say that nothing bad's going to happen to you because you join a tradition, I would say they're probably foolish. That's part of life.
Yeah.
But in reality, in hindsight, I would say, yeah, make sure you're around good people. That's just good common sense there, and just find people you really want to be around, because understand that, when you join these traditions, you're investing your life with these people. I will never stop being a godchild to my godfather. I will never stop being a godchild to my godmother. To them, I will always be trying to get where they are. and they're always trying to get me there, because that's what good conditioning of loving those people around you do.
Mm-hmm.
So it should come from a place of compassion, and the ability to meet you on the level you need to be met on.
Very true. I think just my aside on the idea of creating or using symbols. I know there are traditions like some types of chaos magic and some other traditions where people make their own symbology, either through automatic writing or personally, I tend to use, I may take symbols that I already know and reconfigure them, but I don't start from nothing personally, because I'm more of a research into the tradition I'm doing and getting energy from that sort of paradigm. So I don't tend to make up my own, like sigil. I will take Hebrew words, cuneiform. I will take symbols like from Kimbanda. They use a lot of pitchforks and things which have very specific meaning. You have to look it up to figure out, if you're not part of that tradition, what they mean. And I am not speaking from anybody who is part of Kimbanda. I use a few things from it because of their tie to Lilith. But I am not a Kimbanda practitioner, and nothing I say is meant to say that I am. But the point being is I use symbology that I know what it means and I have a resonance with, and then I will put it together. But I personally don't just create something. Maybe if I had a dream sequence where, someone I worked with, an entity I worked with, gave me some vision, but just sitting down and drawing something does not work for me. Even though some do that, some people do that.
There are, the Peter Corral and Libernal, and delving into like taking a whole write out that you blessed and consecrated, and doing reductionism by the letters and only making single letters, and then taking that letter and configuring it into a symbol, or taking a witch's wheel and making a symbol and burning it into in a cauldron to make it appear in your mind's eye and manifest, or writing it on the wall for other people to be imprinted by its sight. Using different types of practical components that become added to it. I would say, does it work? Yep, it sure does. I would say, how do the results vary? I would say for some people, it works very well.
Right.
And other people, I would say it's probably a good waste of time and a good way to exercise your brain activity. I'm not into, I'm going to keep it very polite and PG. Some people utilize these things in ways that are not appropriate. And those things can get kind of weird. You get a different type of crowd, but that doesn't mean that there isn't room for everyone.
Right.
And if you do that, that's great. I hope you keep getting results, and I say all the blessings to you, and keep making it happen for yourself.
Yeah, that's where, I know I say this on a lot of the videos I do or in my books. I say, first of all, don't believe something just because I tell you, or anybody tells you. Do your own research, find your own gnosis. And then the other thing is, there are many paths to the truth.
Sure.
I say, oh, there's only one truth. Well, my belief is, yes, somewhere beyond all of our physical reality, there is one unified truth. But here we are in this place, and there's many ways to get to your truth, and use what works for you. And you're saying the same thing, Richard. I know it's what works for you. What are you drawn to? What gives you the connection that you're looking for? And then connect that to some kind of practice. And what I mean by that is, I don't believe you have to go search out the Sumerians, for instance, because I'm doing that right now. That's not because I think I have to go back to the source. It's because I want to learn more. But my point being that, even if it's something that comes to you out of nowhere, that can still be beneficial. But I would tie it back then to what have others in the past said? What have other traditions taught? Not that you have to do it exactly like they did, but just to get some grounding. This sort of goes back to your question, Dee, about how do you know if it's real or just in your head. I always look for, one, the physical and conscious manifestations of what I'm trying to do, but I also look to a correlation with other things. Like, does it make sense based on at least some rough connection to the rest of what, because when you look at spirituality, it's all similar symbols, similar ideas with different cultural, psychologic, spirit connections. So if you're going down a path and it doesn't seem to resonate with anything, I'm not saying you're wrong. What I'm saying is try to figure out how it fits. Because that's what I know that's what I do. I go and say, okay, I'm getting this gnosis that this is where to go. Does that make sense? So first of all, does it make sense with what I've done previously, with my paradigm, with me as a person? Then does it make sense to the bigger picture of the spiritual world? And sometimes I'll go to somebody that I really respect, like you, Richard, or Brandon, who's here with me. Dee, I know we've talked about stuff. I'll go to them and say, does this make sense? Or am I just making crap up? And I think it's good, don't rely that, if somebody tells you no, it doesn't mean you're totally wrong, but it is good to get that confirmation so you can then say to yourself, okay, what are their points? What are my points? I'm sort of babbling, but I guess the point here is that the bottom line point is look at how this ties to everything around you and see if it fits when you're coming up with stuff.
And honestly, you would know if you're getting a result because you're directly experiencing it. You are in your own head. You are in your own world,
Right.
and inside of your own consciousness as an independent, free-thinking spirit. What are the, again, kind of recycling back to what you said, what are you tangibly getting out of what your desires were? Are you achieving that goal set?
Right. Well, and I know somebody told me once, if you encounter a spirit and it tells you something that is so contradictory, to do something that's totally contradictory to your nature, either it's not real or it is real, but it's the wrong spirit for you to be working with.
Yeah, I just laugh. Like, great, this is definitely an opportunity for a learning lesson. Let's look at what's happening here where we can delve, because if I get a contradiction that I'm being fooled, now it's opportunity. It's now game time. It's time to go back to square one, reassess from A to Z of what are my procedures of protocol, right? We can find these procedures of protocol. Stephen Skinner has Techniques of Solomanic Magic. It's an excellent book. It's a little expensive, but Stephen Skinner is the man when it comes to Solomanic magic and written literature. I give it up to him, Aaron Leach. There's a handful of people. Al Cummings does great work too. When it comes to communication with spirits and learning the nature historically and academically. There's tons of material out there. You just gotta figure out where these procedures fall in place, and find out what you're actually getting. When you sign the contract, look at the fine print. We kind of, I kind of think of it as we grow, we find that more of these things are more natural, and that we start out kind of dumb when it comes to the responsive spiritual behavior, because we're learning something new again. A lot of people are taught to put this in the toy box, right? Or to ignore it, or something negative, where these relationships sometimes are as common as knowing how to have the correct relationship with your neighbor. And this is responsive then in the spiritual world, to where we become active intelligence. So we're actively engaging with our intelligence on the spiritual, to where we're being responsive to get those results. And I'm not saying that people are naturally stupid. What I'm saying is that we're not conditioned naturally, and unless we're from these homes or these places that we're around these traditions that teach these things. When we're looking at magic, trying to get results, with procedure, you got to learn it. Like somebody's got to teach it to you. You got to figure it out. You got to begin somewhere.
Right.
So you're new. You gotta begin somewhere, and then you develop. So when we think about that, it's kind of like going to school, or just like anything else in the world. When we relate it back to natural things happening in our lives as human beings, and have that kind of relationship with ourselves, that we're looking for this kind of result. That's like you're going to hire a contractor to build your house, right? You're not going to look for a best friend to do it, because they're probably going to waste their time hanging out, instead of actually doing the work. So I'm gonna hire him, but under these conditions, right? So there's people I would go to the bar with and have a good time, and then there are people that I wouldn't want to invite to my mom's house.
Yeah.
So I think about that when it comes to the realms of spirit, and sometimes it kind of goes beyond that. And then when I think about it more like theurgistically, right? When I'm talking about like connections with ancestors and gods and like higher beings, I don't ask them for daily tasking things. I'm going to ask angels, or I'm going to ask demons to help me. I'm going to ask a dead person that wants to have a cigarette or to drink wine. I'll offer some wine to do something because he wants it, because he's making a decision and made a contract spiritually that he wants to do these things, right? So I'm going to backtrack and then say, your Aunt Ellen that passed, or your Aunt Greta, that Grandma Greta, that comes to you and says, hey, when I was alive, these things were not all quite kosher. So I want you to do this because I'm going to help you, because I'm tied to you ancestrally, and I'm probably going to give you a bunch of crap to get you there. But guess what? I'm with you. I'm going to help you. They're not people that I would ask to do magic. I might ask for the moral compass insight, or just to honor them, give them a place to go, like an altar, a shrine, go visit them at the cemetery to give them an offering, to where they stay alive through you consciously, or what have you. But I'm going to go ask a magician. I'm going to go ask a thief. I'm going to go into the places in the realms, like for healing. I'm going to go find a doctor. I'm going to use my common sense method to go, okay, how can I use this in my magic, and then make it practical, that has proper and appropriate behavior for those environments. And to me, the angels and the demons are the shadows of each other. They are manifestations of a multi-layer dimension that we've built around hundreds and thousands of years of shadow effect. That we are relating these behaviors within ourselves, within our own brains, and then developing the correct materialism to have a response. And to me, that is true symbolism.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a book at the beginning, and I don't remember what it was, and a couple of authors. People are asking if you could type it into the chat.
Oh, I'll pull it up on the screen. So I love doing the Heptameron, because it's not that complicated. I would say that with people might laugh at me, because figuring out days of the week and correspondences and what have you, but it's not that hard. So I like all of the grimoires. So my favorites that I like to use is either the fourth book of occult philosophy, Stephen Skinner. This one is done by Donald Tyson, which is a pretty good edition. There is another one done by Stephen Skinner, which I have behind me on my bookshelf back there. I have the Goetia by Dr. Rudd. Orly Stewart does a pretty good course line on how to operate with Goetic spirits through the utilization of symbolism. So I will promote her here because she's a pretty awesome person, and she does great work. I would say Frater Ashen Chisant does an excellent Goetic course on traditional practice of Goetia. He does a master's course that you can get online. That's really good. There's Enochian stuff that is done by Lon Milo Duquette. He does recordings. You can get a hold of him for the courses. Aaron Leach does a Grimoire Solomanic magic course, and that is phenomenal. He's taught me a lot of wonderful things about Solomanic magic. Joseph Peterson, if you look at Esoteric Archives online, here's another one of his books. I have a lot of Joseph Peterson's material, and this is the Lesser Key of Solomon, and there's lots of seals and things to work with that'll take you down an avenue. He has lots of grimoires, and he even has like discs that you can buy that are not on his website that you can kind of input onto your computer and start delving into the manuscripts and start looking. And then there's the Techniques of Solomonic Magic by Stephen Skinner. I am a bit of a fan of Stephen Skinner. I hope to one day either meet him or talk with him personally, because I really like his work. Also, Mark has a program. Are you still doing your program with the 10 spheres? With people?
On our website, we have the 8 spheres, which the last one is the top 3 altogether.
Yep.
And then I do have a video on our YouTube channel, which is Basics of Kabbalah. And I am doing, if you're in Ohio, I am doing a Kabbalah class at the Magical Druid on the 25th.
Great. So I also take clients. I've even considered taking students personally, for people that want to learn to operate magic. So we have a website, crowandrue.com. Where I take private clients and I can do several things. I usually start out with divination first, just to see where the individual's at, what their needs are, have a live chat. I want to actively engage with people if I'm working with people. I'm willing to help in whatever dynamic the individual might need. So I do this professionally too. I offer services. So there's that. You can contact me privately at Richard Crow on, I do message board. I do Instagram. I do that. So that's kind of what I'm involved with. I do that. I'm involved with all kinds of systems and, different lodge-based systems, as well as, the traditional ATRs. I'm primarily focused on Palo Mayombe and ATR tradition. There's other things I'm going to be delving into in the future, and Solomonic magic is definitely a thing. Kimbanda might be the next journey, so we'll see. I'm pretty busy with Palo Mayombe and with Solomonic magic. That pretty much consumes my time beyond becoming a martial arts instructor. So I'll be teaching martial arts as well. I'm a Shodan in Bujinkan Budo Taijutsu, which is a Japanese Edo period martial arts system. So I've trained in that. So yeah, I'm a pretty well-rounded person from my mind. So if you have any questions or anything you want to ask me or get a hold of me, I pick up my phone for messengers until about 9:30 p.m. After that, I go to sleep. So I'd be glad to contact any of you at any time that I'm available. So usually from 9 a.m. to 9:30. I kind of leave that window to contact me on Messenger, or you can reach me at Lindsay Richard Crow at 885@yahoo.com. And that's my other, methods of communication.
So your website is Crow and Rue, is that CROW&RUE?
Yes, crowandrue.com. And the website should be up. I'll have to communicate with my wife and ask her to make sure, but I believe that's where we were taking clients and stuff like that, doing it online. Yep.
And I'm typing in our website. Most of you probably know it, but I'm just putting it in. Our website has a link to, the study that Richard just mentioned, our 8 spheres, which the last one's all 3 of the supernals put together. We also have a study guide on Kabbalah. All that's free. There's a link to my books and our YouTube channel, which I'm trying to grow. So if you're not a member of, not liked or subscribed on our YouTube channel, if you could do that, that would be great. There's a link on the website. If you're trying to find it just under YouTube, it's my name with author after it. Because YouTube, it's all stupid characters if I give you the URL. So.
I also have a Facebook group called Practical Applications of Magic. So I have different priests from different traditions, and the end for Practical Applications of Magic is MAGICK. So if you're interested, I would say send me an invite, and we just talk about different subjects. I'm hoping that this gets broadcasted. I know Mark has put a few things on. I've had other priests from different lineages share different things from their backgrounds. Just a way to get people to think outside of the box. I'm not really getting anything from it other than trying to meet good people that really want to do stuff.
Yeah, totally understand that. And so another comment just on that kind of stuff is the YouTube channel right now, I'm posting about every 2 days something. A lot of it's Lilith because I'm working on my next book. So of course that's what I'm doing. I do this thing on Gnosticism. There's some Kabbalah. If you have suggestions for anything for us to do in these meetings or to put on the YouTube channel, please let us know. Between James and Brandon and I and Richard, we have a lot of different areas we cover. So if you have ideas for any of that, send me an email. If you want to do a video, I will have to look at it before I post it under our name, of course. But if you want to do something, you shoot me an email about what you're interested in doing. I know Dee and I have talked about that quite a bit. So just letting you know, we're all wanting to share and learn at the same time.
So I know that several of my god brothers and god sisters will probably see this. And I want to give a shout out to Tata Congo, to my Tata Oriate, my godfather.
Uh-oh, looks like Richard may have froze again. Well, while he's reconnecting to give more shout outs, just want to say next month, I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do. So if you have any ideas, let me know. I will say in 2 months, so in May, first Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Of course, that's when our meetings always are. But in May, we are going to do an in-store meeting at Witch Lab in their new ritual space and presentation space. And during that, I plan to do a Sumerian ritual. And we're going to have people put in their wishes for blessings into a spell jar as part of the ritual. So it should be, and again, since it's a Sumerian ritual, I'm recreating because no one's actually knows exactly what they do.
Of our Mayombe community, to all with me, all the people that really glad I got to hang out with you all tonight. And so thank you.
Thank you, Richard. So yeah, lots going on, and lots of stuff happening. Thank you, Richard. And Casey, I did see your message about Baphomet. We will look into that for next time. That's a good topic. A lot of theories about Baphomet, from the Knights Templar through the idea that it is the combination of Samael and Lilith in one being, to all kinds of other stuff. So we'll get that one on the books. Any other ideas, you can shoot me an email. There's a link on the website, and also you can just send direct. markw.ohio@gmail.com. So I want to
Meeting is being recorded.
I want to say thank you so much to Richard for coming and presenting and answering all kinds of questions and just doing a great job. I want to thank all of you who are here, and Dee, who had to drop. And then again, anybody who's watching this on YouTube, just thank you for the time and the effort. If you like what you see, if you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And we do this every first Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, with various topics. So come join us. Okay, thank you all. I'm going to close. It's a little after 8. Thank you. And Richard, I'll message you tomorrow.
All right, sounds wonderful. Many blessings to you all, and have a great evening.
Thank you all. Take care.